Okay, so I'm back here. I'm going to be talking about, is walking the new running, whatever. And so I have a special guest here today, Dr. Melissa McDowell. She's a physical therapist and author of a new book that's called Walk. Do you love it? I love it to pieces. And I got this book. I was able to get a press copy. Thank you. And I read this from cover to cover, and it's absolutely fascinating because, you know, um, um, I have spoke before that I teach a course in Italy every summer, and all they do is walk. And so when I got this book, I said, "Oh my goodness, this is like perfect," because I always talk about these Italians and the walking. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Melissa here on Spot On.
Hi, Dr. Joan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have you. Well, why did you write this book? Because I think this is so interesting. It's like walk, it's like breathe, yeah, sleep, like
Keep doing
walk.
it,
Yeah,
right?
right, right. So why did you write this book? Because I think this is interesting.
Yes. So this book is a collaboration with a co-author, Dr. Courtney Conley, who is a internationally known foot and gait expert and a dear friend of mine. And we were at a wedding together in Mexico. And she said, Melissa, I need you to help me with a project this year. And I said, great. What do you need from me? She goes, I'm going to write a book. I said, great. My background, I'm an education professional in the health sciences. I've been a university faculty. I'm good at commercialization of things. Business operations is kind of part of what I know how to do. And so I assumed she was just looking for me to help her get a publisher, sell the book, et cetera. And she said, Melissa, I've been this expert for years. It's really something that's been inside of me forever. I want to write a book about the foot. And I said, well, I think 10 people are probably going to read that, Courtney. And two of them are right
Melissa,
here.
listen, I think you're a little optimistic. I think maybe like eight. Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
so we recognize quickly that the foot is an amazing part of our anatomy. It has it has a lot of indicators for our health span, our lifespan, our overall wellness, back pain, all sorts of other indicators. But it's not really a very sexy topic. At the time, there had been some really big research studies that came out looking at longevity indicators for walking and
Hmm.
how much walking you should do. Are there certain baselines or top lines that really help us understand the parameters of how much walking helps us with daily wellness and our longevity? And so I proposed back to her, I said, I love the foot as much as you do. I'm a physical therapist, she's a chiropractor. We're both orthopedic gals. I said, but let's talk about walking and then we can tuck in the information about the foot. So it's been this phenomenal collaboration project with one of my dearest friends, most respected colleagues. And we are just so thrilled that 2026 is when this baby is being born, coming out into
That's
the world.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And whenever you hear about people that live to 100 or and live well, but have a health
Yes.
span, not just a lifespan, a health span, it always comes up. They walk. They walk
Hmm.
all the day. They're working in the garden. It's become walking is the exercise is part of the life. There's not a gym
Yes.
membership. They don't have to get dressed up, and go and drive, which just cracks me up. Drive to the gym to walk on the treadmill. They just walk. They just walk
Yes.
around their beautiful, beautiful world, and that seems to be um, a key point of for longevity and aging well. You call something I'm sorry, vitamin W, and of course, me being a nutrition professor, I'm like, there's no vitamin W. What is she talking about here? So I think this is fabulous. Can you tell us what your vitamin W is?
Yes, I should have gotten the blessing of the nutrition community first. So we use vitamin W as an analogy that walking is something your body needs. And similar to vitamin D and A and K and all the things that we need to support our processes and avoid disease, we like to characterize it in that fashion. As you mentioned earlier in the conversation, we've sort of put walking in this pedestal similar to breathing and sleeping. And it is a trilogy that your body needs to survive. You have to breathe, you have to sleep, and body requires movement to be well. And so we really loved the vitamin W analogy because it tends to help us really characterize how important it is for
Hmm.
wellness, for avoidance of disease, and for longevity.
Yeah. And I'm lucky that I'm here at Boston University, and so I live often part of the week, most of the week actually, here on campus, and I walk. I mean, that's all I
Hmm.
do. I
Hmm.
walk, and I have to tell you, it is life changing for so many reasons, and you're going to get into that. And it's not just burning calories, although it does that, but
Right.
let's talk about you had listed all this wonderful ways that walking can help you. And
Hmm.
and and one is with crabbiness. And you even talked about crabby young people. And I'm like, okay, I got to get this one out. Here I'm here at Boston University. So crabby teens. Go tell me what's the story? How can walking help when you're crabby?
Yes. So there is research that actually looks at mothers and teenage daughters. And my co author, Dr. Conley, and I both have daughters who are in that age bracket. And it talks about how walking and outdoor walking actually
Mm,
can improve communication and reduce frustration and feelings of stress. And so there's some really great data that, as two moms of gals, we just really wanted to share with all the other moms out there who are potentially struggling with their teenagers or professors who maybe have some crabby 18, 19-year-olds in your classes. But there is really great data that talks about how it can give a reset, right? And if you think about walking with another person, you're not just having sort of the cognitive sharing and the holding space for each other, being together in that moment. Walking becomes very rhythmic and you start to
mm.
match each other's physiological pattern. And if you and I are walking together, whether I'm taller than you or shorter than you, eventually we'll have to coordinate that physiological pattern to keep up with each other. And that builds those feelings of camaraderie, reduces frustration, it can improve mood. And so that's really part of where the science lies in that area.
That's really fascinating. So there's really something to walking and talking.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and that is absolutely fascinating because that's a way for you to connect with even your significant other. It doesn't have to be a teenager. So
Yes.
that's really fascinating. That's great. I'm going to have to bring that up to my significant other.
We talk
Probably
about relationship walks in the book,
there you
and
go.
those relationship walks are your spouse, your partner.
Right.
We talk about intergenerational walks. We jokingly
Yes.
say,
Yes.
take granny for a walk, but it really does have opportunities for us to connect and honor our elders, assist them to get out of the house, have community, connect with others. And so, crabby teens are kind of a funny one. Your spouse is really a lovely one, but the intergenerational relationship building can be really valuable, especially
Yes.
in challenging times.
Yes, that was one on your list I was going to ask you about, but that's so true because walking with an older person is just that connection, but
Hmm.
also, you know, you hope that osmosis occurs where the wisdom from the older person goes into your
Hmm.
head of the younger person.
Hmm.
And that is, there's so much wisdom on there and experience and that can be shared while you're walking. So I think that's fabulous. And speaking of older people, how does it affect dementia?
The dementia research is really exciting. So, when we talk about step counts, that's where the dementia
Hmm.
research gets exciting. So,
Yes.
if I was to ask you, Dr. Joan, what do you think the number is of the step count that everyone should do per day to be healthy? What's that typical one that you hear in the media?
It's 10,000. And that's my number,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, it is. Do you know where that comes from? Most people don't.
No, no, because I don't go that far. I just take it for granted. Okay, go. What is it?
So the 10,000 step a day benchmark is actually a marketing myth. And it's one of the things that in our book we myth bust, if you will. It is a leftover marketing statement from a 1960s Japanese pedometer marketing campaign.
No.
And so in the 1960s, the Olympics were in Tokyo. And around that time, there were all these campaigns for well being and activity. And the pedometer, the very first pedometer, was developed in Japan. Those of you who aren't familiar with a pedometer at the time, it was a way precursor to your Apple Watch. You clipped it on your belt, it had like a little device in it
Right.
that every time you took a step, a counter rolled over.
Yes.
And what's interesting about that is the counter of these original devices stopped at, you guessed it, 10,000 steps.
Isn't that interesting? I'm telling
And
you, but if I go on Jeopardy, I'm going to be able to answer this question.
there you go. I will have served you well with one Jeopardy answer. So to answer your question about dementia, we typically have this non-science based concept that 10,000 steps per day is the right number. But what we really want to educate people about is that does, in a lot of cases, seem unapproachable. People are like, I don't have that kind of time. I'm not that fit. My feet will get sore, what have you. And so, throughout our research for this book, writing a book takes almost 2 years. We have
Mm,
300 research studies
right.
cited in our book, so it's very evidence based. We were able to uncover all the different science-based, good science, big studies, large format, multi-center, these different step counts that matter, if you will. Dementia is one that is asked about frequently, and there are two important step counts for dementia: a low end and a high end. The low end is 3,800 steps per day,
Mm,
reduces risk of dementia by 25%.
mm,
It's a pretty significant number.
that is.
The high end, 9,800 steps per day. And this is across all of the education that we're doing over these next couple of years with this project. 9,800 is really, really, really the top end. Yes, it's pretty close to 10K, but again, 10K is not the norm. If you're someone who has a higher family history or risk of dementia, at 9,800, you can reduce risks of developing different types of dementia by nearly 50%.
Whoa.
So between 3,800 and 9,800 is the sweet spot
Hmm.
for reducing risks of developing dementia.
That's fascinating. And again, I'm wondering, Melissa, is it the walking? Is it the steps or the stress release? Walking, well, for me, I'm walking outside, so I'm
Mhm.
flowers. Well, not now in Boston, but you know what I mean? And so is it the whole package, like what you're feeling, your movements? What do you think?
It's really thought of as a combination of the physiological changes and the
Hmm.
cognitive changes. And the
Yeah.
physiological changes are very important. When we start thinking about reasons that folks have age-related decline, our
Hmm.
chemistry changes, our hormones change, our bone health changes, our muscle mass changes, we're after 35 really sort of fighting a battle against rapidity of decline. And with that, when you are someone who is more adherent to ongoing walking programming, the physiological side of the equation starts to get less decline. The decline is slower.
Right.
We start to have better protection against things like falls. And
Mm,
then we also have that cognitive side of the equation. And we know that we can combat some of the age related changes that are pretty normal if we are more active, and particularly because walking is rhythmic. It's
hmm.
bilateral, meaning your right side of your body and your left side of your body have to coordinate. We know that it improves cranial blood flow. We know that it reduces anxiety and depression symptoms as well as disease
Hmm.
development. And so when we think about it, layering it into a lifestyle that, is maybe healthy nutritionally or healthy not nutritionally, it's one of those things that is a low hanging fruit, accessible to most individuals,
Right.
and is going to create significant outcome improvement.
Right. Right. And again, the Europeans walk all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. Just thinking about bones. So, uh, what is the benefit from, walking in your bones?
Yeah. So we know that particularly for midlife women, walking
Mm-hmm.
can be a great strategy against some of the typical bony decline that we see. And with that, there's some really amazing menopause researchers out there who are talking a lot about loading the body, loading the bones,
Mm-hmm.
doing additional body weight. So weighted walking or rucking has really come into the media. And so with that, we know that bone is a organ system in our body that needs to be stimulated. And if you are sitting all day or you're someone who chooses activities that are not stressful to the weight bearing system, such as swimming or cycling, you're not loading those bones.
Mm-hmm.
When we load the bones with gravity, the bones are stimulated. We have a cell called our osteoblasts. We like to think of them
Mm-hmm.
as osteobuilders or bone
Mm-hmm.
builders. And as long as you have proper nutritional matrix, right, when we start
Mm-hmm.
talking about calcium, vitamin D, all the things we
Mm-hmm.
need for the building blocks, our bones can stay stronger, become less porous. And we are essentially counteracting some of the age related bony decline that would be normal if we did not intervene in that way. The other part that is really important there, aside from the weight bearing exercise, are we have something called the piezoelectric effect of muscle. Muscle essentially is contracting, it's squeezing the bone, that's helping to stimulate a little bit. And then finally, if you walk more, generally speaking, you're going to have better muscle tone and better balance, which means if you do take a slip, trip, or fall, you are going to be less likely to have a fracture.
Right.
Particularly important for our female population.
Absolutely, because our bone mass is not as robust, or I should say, not our
Yes,
bone size is not as robust. And
right.
making sure that you have solid bone mass starts early. We talk
Hmm.
about osteoporosis being a disease or a problem for older people. It actually osteoporosis is really needs to be prevented in pediatrics. I mean, you got it because you got to load those bones. You got to have enough vitamin D.
Hmm.
You have calcium to get
Hmm.
it in there so that you have strong stores. Let me
Yes,
ask you about this weighted vest because this is a hot thing now. This
it
weighted vest.
is.
So now I'm understanding what you're saying, this weighted vest. So while I'm walking with this weighted vest, look at me, and for people who are listening and not watching us on YouTube, I'm actually walking in my chair here. Um, and so if I put this vest on, so what you're saying is while I'm walking, and that's helping with, my legs and everything, but that extra weight is helping with the bones in the torso. Is that what I'm getting at here?
So you're able to load your spine more
Okay.
when you're wearing a weighted vest. And
Okay.
weighted vests or weighted walking, also known as rucking, have been around for a long time. They probably came into more popularity in the last 20 years. With that, we know that if you wear additional load in your torso,
Mm-hmm.
you're adding additional load into the spine. And when we
Ooh.
think about osteopenia,
Mm-hmm.
osteoporosis, fracture locations, it is the hip, it is the wrist, and it is the spine. So it is a
Oh.
way to provide central load, especially in our female population. When if you're getting double bang for your buck, is how I like to look at it.
And I would also think, Melissa, that that by having the weighted vest, you're actually going to be burning more calories per
Yes.
step.
That's correct. You will be burning more calories because you're moving more load. So
Right.
it's just like any other activity where you're adding a resistance. In this case, you're just adding a central resistance to your torso.
So what about holding on to weights while you're
Mhm.
walking? Is that
That's an interesting 1980s aerobics hangover, if you
Yes,
will.
it is. All
It's
right,
not going to
don't
hurt you.
point 1980s and look at me, Melissa.
My mom is a retired PE teacher and is someone who very much inspired me to go into the health and fitness field,
Right.
and is incredibly fit in her late 70s. But I sat through many a jazzercise routine growing up. Walking with weights is not bad for you. However, it is something that if you have had any shoulder, wrist, hand, or neck pathology,
Oh.
you're someone with headaches, you've had a rotator cuff repair, you've had a carpal tunnel surgery, it can be a little dicey. And so I never discourage people from moving. That's sort of one of the tenets my clinical practice has always been built upon. However, I might want to turn the dials a little and say, hey, you could do it a little better this way. So, walking with weights in your hand could be a little dicey if you've had any upper extremity pathology, or if you're someone who has had a history of slip, trip, or fall. It
Okay.
actually starts to increase your upper body torso and momentum. It's
Hmm.
going to increase shoulder and spine rotation. And so for some individuals, it's just like not quite the right prescription, but it does increase the intensity of the activity. It also would increase the calories you would burn.
Right. Walking itself, you said in the book, affects your body composition. So how does it do
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, so what we can do is you can think about using walking to affect your body composition. We know that our bodies burn two types of fuel when we're doing activity. I have an exercise physiology degree and have been in the exercise physiology field for a long time. We generally can burn carbs, right? Or we can
Hmm.
burn fat. And
Hmm.
if you want to change your body composition, most people tend to focus on trying to burn fat as a fuel. In order to burn fat as a fuel, you have to be in the specific zone of heart rate demand,
Hmm.
which I'm sure you know, Doctors Joan, given your profession, is zone two. And if you get into zone two, you're going to be tipped a little bit more toward fat than carbs. It is a misconception that it's like a light switch because it very much is not. But the blend tends toward a little bit more fat burning if you're in the right heart rate zone. An easy way to know where that zone if you can still talk when you are exercising, you're in zone two. If you tip out of being able to easily hold a conversation, you're having to catch your breath, hang on, oh, I need a second, you're probably in zone three. Also, if you have an Apple Watch, it's a pretty easy way to figure out what zone you're in.
That okay. So I'm going to try to make sure I stay in zone two, get out of one and
Yes,
go into two. All right.
that's correct. And you have to walk briskly to do that. And that is
Yes.
something that is another element that we educate on. Most people's general walking speed is around 100 steps per minute. So in 5 minutes, which we consider to be a micro walk, you would take about 500 steps. For most of us, even depending on your height and your leg length, to get into zone two, you've got to bump that up to 120 to 130.
Hmm.
So, if you ever have access to a treadmill, that is a phenomenal place to practice such things. All you need is a watch with a second hand or to use the
Hmm.
timer on the
Hmm.
treadmill. And what you do is you listen to your cadence. Cadence is the number of steps per
Hmm.
minute or the speed at which you're walking. So, typically, the easiest way to do that is to do a 6 second count and then add a zero. So if I take 10 steps, right, left, right, left, right, left, in six
Hmm.
seconds, I add the zero, I'm probably walking around 100. In order to get to zone two, which is considered brisk walking, and brisk is a term used with in the science literature as well as in general marketing information, 120 to 130 is kind of cooking. I like to say to patients, if you are late for the train or late for a flight, you're almost walking that fast. You're not out of breath, but it's
Right.
if you were late for something important.
So how does when you got the weighted vest on? Because that's going to increase, right? So
Yes, that
now,
takes some training.
yeah, yeah.
the biggest biggest
No.
feedback I hear about weighted vests is they typically buckle to the front and they're
Hmm.
velcroed. The
Hmm.
way most of them are designed is they have a weight plate in the front and a weight
Hmm.
plate in the back, and you're
Sure.
sort of sandwiched,
Hmm.
but you have to velcro it around your ribs.
Hmm.
That can reduce your rib and lung excursion. So I've
Oh.
certainly had folks I've worked with over the years, patients as well as personal training clients, who are like, I can't breathe when this thing's on.
Mm.
So if you're new to weighted walking, I would certainly not stack weighted walking and faster walking until you have a good amount of experience with the weighted walking.
Is there a certain amount of weights to have in the weighted on the vest? Like, does it
Yes,
change or?
it can. Most of them, vests run between $100 and $300. And they generally are more expensive the more customizable they are.
Okay.
Some will have just like one weight plate. Some
Hmm.
will have lots of itty bitty weights. And so,
Oh,
for those who are newer to weighted walking and are only going to use it for walking or hiking, what I recommend is getting the ones with lots of little itty bitty weights, because then you can take them all out. You can start by getting used to having the vest around you. Then you can start putting the weights in, and then you can work your way up.
that makes
And
so much sense.
generally speaking, we don't recommend any more than 10% of your body weight in the vest unless you're using it for some sort of really specific training. But for general walking, it's about 10% of body weight, nothing greater.
I mean, you realize that I'm doing this podcast for the public, but I'm selfishly asking these questions for myself. I mean, it's really all about me, Melissa, okay? I just, and, so I'm just chuckling inside. Sleep, you know, again, tell me how walking helps with sleep.
Mhm. There's a few factors. Some of it's related to our temperature and hormone control.
Mm,
And for individuals, there was a big trend maybe last year or so, which was the after dinner walk. And it was all over TikTok and all over Instagram. And people were getting out and going to walk after dinner, thinking about, how does that affect blood sugar? How does that affect your ability to go to
hmm.
bed?
Hmm.
Those sorts of
Hmm.
things. And timing of walking is very interesting. As I said, I'm an advocate of all types of movement. I would rather you move than don't. And so if after dinner is the time you can go walking, please go walking. If you're a 5 in the morning person, go at 5 in the morning. But walks, it's the data is actually very interesting. So there is some data that says if you are a morning walker, you will sleep better later in the day. And there's some
Oh,
data that says if you're an after dinner walker, you will sleep better later in the day. And overarchingly, the data relies on, are we changing body temp? What's it doing to digestion? And what's your
mm,
blood sugar look like? Which really cascades over into your domain. By no means am I a nutrition expert. And
hmm,
so
hmm.
it definitely, timing is an interesting factor when it comes to how walking can improve your sleep.
Yeah, well, we know that when you're walking or you're exercising, I should say, it's easier for the uptake of glucose to your cells without,
Yep.
without use of insulin. So that could really help a lot of people that are
Yes.
in not only have diabetes but have pre-diabetes. That's a whole nother
Yes.
episode of us.
Yes.
Can I ask you, do you need to do this all at one, walk, or can we do little walks throughout the day, or?
I love that question. Do you snack throughout the day or do you just eat two great big or three great big meals? So
Honey, I'm Italian. I eat all day long.
I love this. We want movement snacking.
Right,
Some people's schedules allow for, I can go do 30 minutes and I can do that in the morning. I can do 15 in the evening, check the
right.
box, move on. But there is this concept of interrupted sitting that has phenomenal data behind it. The
Right.
data behind interrupted sitting talks about if you can walk for 5 minutes, 500 steps, if you could stand up and do 10 bodyweight squats, if you can interrupt staying in one position for hours upon hours upon hours, there is really great data that looks at cognitive fogginess, so mental clarity, mood, blood pressure, all sorts of low back pain indicators. Awesome, awesome studies that are related to interrupted sitting. So, with that, I'm an advocate of doing it whenever you can. But for most individuals or someone who's starting out new or has had a long layoff, a snack size bite is the key.
Mm,
And in order for a snack to count, this is very important. It needs to be 5 minutes.
okay.
The reason behind that is there's really two types of walks. There is ambient walking, which is I'm going to get up and get a cup of coffee and come back here. I'm going to use the washroom, come back here. Oh, I need to go, wash my glasses. Oh, somebody called me. Versus intentional walking. And intentional walking is when you get into a steady state and that steady state requires at least 5 minutes to get the benefit. Because if I go walk and get a cup of coffee and come back, I might have walked for 90 seconds. That doesn't really get me into the physiological rhythm, the hormonal rhythm, or the biomechanical pattern.
So, Melissa, we should get off Zoom. Not, I love Zoom, but I'm just saying maybe cut back on the Zoom meetings and do more of a walk and talk,
Walk and
and
talk
think.
is amazing.
Walk and talk. And so just get on your phone. I don't have to look at you. I mean, I'm recording you, but I don't really need to look
Yeah.
at you. All these business meetings, you know what these people look like. So why don't you set up a walk and talk and,
Hmm.
and think about it. 20 minutes of walking, that could really be an interesting way to get more movement into your day.
So my co-author Courtney and I were just in London working with our publisher over there. And we're working with Penguin Random House, which is
Mm.
absolutely a top-notch, incredible
Right,
team. And their team is very much positioning the work that we've done with this book as a public health announcement.
right,
This is something they are looking for to change community behavior.
right.
With that, a walk and talk is something that I was actually interviewed on a podcast earlier today that's in the sort of business and leadership space. And he was asking me about walk and talk meetings. And I said, if you are a business leader, if you are the dean of a department, if you are the boss of your family, you can create a culture that welcomes this
Right,
and give people permission to
right.
say, hey, Joan, you and I have a call later today. Great. I'm just going to hop on my phone. I'm going to go for a walk while you're on. If we work from the same office, we could go outdoors together.
Yes.
That has the potential to change relationships, creativity, the way we respect our colleagues, our family members, our students. I just think there is so much potential there for creating that open opportunity for people to say, we need to gather and share ideas about X topic. Could we do this and add some movement into it? I think that could really be revolutionary.
I think it's cool. And yeah, I'll tell you something. It could make you want to go back to the office because
Yeah.
you can do these walk and talks with people and this, if you have to, or you can do it at home, walk and talks too, but
Mhm.
it's nice to be outside and brainstorming. Who said you have to be around a desk to get,
Right.
brainstorm? Why don't we get some
Right.
movements in there?
I
Okay,
love
so
that.
so I want to ask you, if there's always these fads that are going up there on social media. So there's something called a 12-3-30. All right. So it's like let me get this right here. So 12-30, it has that people walk on a treadmill at a 12 incline and
Hmm.
level three speed for
Hmm.
30 minutes. I mean, I have
Hmm.
to read this because I can't get. Okay, can you tell me what is this and is it any, what is it? Is it any good?
I mean, I love a good trend like the next gal, right? We're hoping that our book brings back the hot girl walk of the 2020 summer for TikTok trends. But yeah, the 12-3-30 is exactly that. It's a trend. You're right. 12%
Hmm.
incline, 3 miles an hour, 30
Hmm.
minutes. And so let me break down those three components.
Okay.
The American College of Sports Medicine is really a big knowledge governing body in my industry. And they say, generally speaking, adults should get 150 minutes of physical activity that raises your heart rate, cardiovascular activity per week, and then 2 days of strength training. But if we focus on that 150 minutes of
Hmm.
cardiovascular activity, and I do a 30-minute walk, guess what? Check the box. So, on some level, the 30 minutes, if you are orthopedically, so foot, ankle, low back, everything else, conditioned to walk that long, okay, fine. The other two components, 3 miles per hour. 3 miles per hour is below the walking cadences we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
So that's going to be probably less than 100 steps a minute for most individuals. It's a very slow walking pace. And so when you couple a slow walking pace with a very steep incline, what this challenge does is it really forces you to negotiate and navigate that vertical rise rather than a faster horizontal pace.
Hmm.
If you are new to exercise, if you are deconditioned, if you've never done this before, if you're not used to walking uphill, this has Achilles tendon issues,
Yeah.
plantar fasciopathies, big toe pain written all over it. Now, I said at the onset, I'm not someone who discourages movement, but I'm always about it being mindful. And to me, this type of a challenge, 12% incline for a half an hour, people are going to be so sore. They are going
Yes.
to have ankle pain, foot pain, maybe even low back pain. They're going to be hanging on for dear life on the rails on the treadmill. To me, the parameters feel very aggressive. And I don't think that this combination of 12-3-30 is appropriate for most entry level individuals.
And we just talked about the whole idea of walking outside with the weather when it's nice, this whole stress relief. And if I'm holding
Hmm.
on to the handles of this treadmill, saying, when is it over? I mean, I just put stress in my life and I got on the
Right,
treadmill to get rid of the stress. So
right.
all right, there we go. I'm not a physical therapist, but I, can read between the lines.
Yes.
All right, so when is this book available? Because I'm going to be buying it for everyone. So when is it? How can they get? Can they pre-order it? What's the story on this?
Great question. Thank you for asking. So this is what she looks like. So this is our
Woo!
our
Great.
US book,
Great.
Walk,
Walk.
Dr.
That's
Courtney
good.
Conley and
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Um, we are super proud of how it came together. It is
Yes.
just a beautiful, sort of culmination of 2 years of work. It is available for pre-order at this moment everywhere you would buy a book:
Okay.
Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Amazon. And if anyone is listening who is perhaps like a faculty or someone who
Mhm.
is in an environment where you're working with others that you would want to share it, there are abilities to do bulk orders too, which
Oh,
is something
great.
that if you put my Instagram or whatever in the show notes, Dr. Joan, we
Right.
can help people find that.
That's great.
Its publication date is Cinco de Mayo this year, which is very exciting. I am just thrilled. My husband and I also have a home in Mexico, so we are very close with our neighbors and friends down there. We have a great appreciation for various celebrations in Mexican heritage. So it's just extra special that that so happened.
And can you
And
translate that date for people who don't to follow Cinco de Mayo?
oh, sorry. Cinco de Mayo is May 5th.
May 5th.
My
Okay,
apologies.
great. That's right.
May 5, 2026 is the big birthday.
Great.
That week, we will be in New York City doing some
Oh.
publicity work with our US publisher, which is Hachette. And there's some talk about potentially maybe getting an early morning spot on a news program. So you
Ooh.
might be seeing the two of us early, talking to some folks about how we really believe that a conversation in this book is for everyone. There's something in there about what shoes to wear. There's something in there about how to strengthen your feet. There's something in there about the step counts, how to counteract if you've got pain or an old injury, and just really how to stay intrinsically motivated for an activity like this.
Well, I'm hoping that you are making an audio book so that
We
people
are.
could air quote read it while they're walking. And I that's what
Yes.
I do a lot of. So I'm hoping that's in the cards there for you. Well, Dr. Melissa McDowell, you are just a gem, and I can't thank you enough. I learned so much, and I have to go because I have to order a weighted vest quickly so it comes tomorrow, so I can get going on that. So I can't thank you again for sharing your PT wisdom, sharing this book, and I can't wait for it to get out to people to read it. Thank you so much for coming on Spot On.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We can stuff. Hi, Spot On listeners and viewers. Today we're going to be talking, is walking the new running? We have so much science and research on this of the benefits of walking and why it is superior to many other types of exercise. We're also going to get into this whole weighted vest. Should you get a weighted vest? What does it really do for you? Does it necessary? We're going to get to the bottom of that. So hope you that you'll log on, listen to this, and you know something? Maybe you'll listen to this while you're walking. That might not be a half bad thing.